Also, some aircraft will tend to throw out the first quart if you fill the sump to the maximum level. You may wish to operate a quart low. However, care should be taken when going on long cross countries to ensure adequate oil supply for the length of your trip.
Thanks, Ben. So we can conclude that proper engine startup and break-in are critical steps toward maximizing the operating life of your engine. Performing a ground run test and test flight, following the recommended procedures in Service Instruction 1427, and closely observing the recommendations for proper oil consumption will keep your engine in top working condition. Now that your engine has been placed into service, there are some specific normal operating procedures that will keep that engine operating at maximum performance. Operating at the correct temperature, using the correct fuel and oil, and following proper maintenance procedures are the key things to remember. Ben is ready to tell us about the right stuff when it comes to the normal operation of your aircraft.
Engine oil lubricates and keeps the engine clean. Everybody knows that, but actually engine oil performs 7 major functions. Lubrication to reduce surface-to-surface wear is the primary function of oil. Next, viscosity, or the fluid quality of the oil, acts to separate and protects moving parts. As a cooling medium, oil is essential in the efficient dissipation of heat within the engine. Oil's cleaning action washes away or suspends the products of combustion and other contaminants that reduce engine life. Corrosion protection is achieved through additives and helps protect your engine from moisture and the byproducts of combustion. And hydraulic action is the property of oil to transmit energy through a fluid. Now that you have a better understanding of what oil really does inside your engine, let's look at how useful air-oil separators can be to the process.
Air-oil separators can be helpful when used correctly, but if not properly installed, they can act as a condensing unit, returning all the moisture from the crankcase blow-by back to the crankcase. This process can increase rust and corrosion during periods of inactivity. Whether your airplane has an air-oil separator or not, we recommend that if the plane is dormant for more than 4 months, use a preservative oil like Aeroshell Oil 2F to reduce rust and corrosion. Crankcase oil heaters heat the oil prior to engine startup. If there is moisture present in the oil and the heater is left on all the time, increased vaporization of moisture from the oil will be the result. The water will condense on colder, non-heated engine parts, increasing the rust and corrosion tendency on these parts. If you have one of these units, we recommend you plug it in a few hours prior to flight time, or even the night before. Don't leave it on all the time. Also, use a preheater system that heats the engine as well as the oil.
For Textron Lycoming engines, we recommend using lubricating oils which conform to SAE J1966 and the former MIL L6082 straight mineral oil spec, or SAE J1899 and the former MIL L22851 ashless dispersant oil spec. The latest revision of Service Instruction 1014 states any brand name lubricating oil in accordance with these specifications is acceptable for use, and the proof of such conformity is the responsibility of the lubricating oil manufacturer. The ambient ground temperatures listed in this chart are meant only as a guide. Your personal judgment should be used when selecting the seasonal grade of oil to put into your engine. For example, if your aircraft is flown from or into a dramatically warmer or colder climate, only your personal judgment can determine what grade of oil to use, or when the inlet temperatures approach the maximum allowable during operation, it's always a good idea to consider using a higher viscosity oil. Remember, most normally aspirated engines must be broken in on mineral oil during the first 50 hours of operation or until oil consumption has stabilized. All turbocharged engines must be broken in and operated with ashless dispersant oil only. See the manufacturer's publications for exceptions, for example, the 0320H and 0360E series. Laboratory tests indicate that in the first moment when an engine is started, there is insufficient residual oil between the rubbing parts, which can affect the service life of these components. Textron Lycoming has evaluated an agent which, when added to the normal oil supply, deters scuffing under these conditions. The additive is LW16702 and is recommended as being essential for good engine operation. It can also be used in all types of aircraft engines except for installations that utilize a friction-type clutch with a common transmission engine oil system. See the latest revision of Service Instruction 1409 for additional information. This additive is also contained in Aeroshell Oil W15W50 and Aeroshell Oil W100 Plus, which meet the provisions of this service instruction. Review the special stipulations concerning the use of LW16702 for your particular engine series. LW16702 or an oil containing this additive is required for some engine models and recommended for others. You can find this information in the latest revisions of Service Bulletins 446 or 471. Service Bulletin 480 details Textron Lycoming's recommendations for oil change intervals. We recommend a total of 4 months maximum between changes for both full flow filtration and pressure screen systems, or 25-hour interval oil change and screen cleaning for all engines employing a pressure screen system, or a 50-hour interval oil change and filter replacement for all engines using full flow filtration system unless otherwise noted as an exception in the latest revision of Service Bulletin 480. If all of these numbers seem confusing, all the more reason to pay close attention to your service bulletins.
Now let's take a look at the importance of an oil change and the role of oil analysis in an ongoing maintenance program. An oil change is still one of the cheapest, best maintenance buys going. Always change and inspect your filter and inspect your suction and pressure screen at each oil change. Another thing to remember about oil change intervals is not to go by the color of the oil in the dipstick. If the oil looks very black, that doesn't necessarily mean it's worn out. Conversely, if it's golden like honey, it doesn't mean you can go another 50 hours. Cut your filter apart and use a magnet to locate iron filings in your filter. An excess of iron or other metals could mean impending failure of internal parts. Also, conduct a visual inspection for non-metallic materials. Be sure to check that your safety wire has been reinstalled after a filter change. And please, avoid excessive skin contact with used oil. Remember, used oil contains hazardous substances such as lead, a byproduct of combustion. Don't worry if you have to mix brands or types of oil in an emergency. All mil-spec oils are compatible. Always change your oil before storing for the winter. Better yet, follow the engine manufacturer's recommendations for preservation. If you do oil analysis, do it on a regular basis. Take samples in a consistent manner. Do use the correct oil for your type of flying. When in doubt, refer to the engine manufacturer's recommendations. While oil analysis may not tell you everything about your engine condition, it's still a good tool to detect changes within your engine and should be considered as an important part of an ongoing preventative maintenance program. And finally, consider oil analysis as part of the research in buying a used aircraft. But remember, just one analysis may not tell you everything about the engine. Our final segment is designed to give you some tips to help you respond to a variety of other situations you may encounter during the normal operation of your new or rebuilt engine. John Hazlett is here to review some of these situations.
Situations like leaning, which done properly is beneficial for all engines and helps ensure that the oil gets up to the proper temperature. On the other hand, aggressive leaning, especially in turbocharged engines, can cause excessive temperatures and shorten the life of your engine. A word about temperature management. Common sense tells us to bring the engine up to the proper temperature before takeoff, and after landing, allow it to cool prior to shutdown. Your engine components are metallic, mainly aluminum and steel, and these metals expand and contract at different rates. Aluminum crankcases and pistons have a higher coefficient of thermal expansion than steel cylinders and crankshafts. Consequently, events like shock cooling your engine during a rapid descent can dramatically shorten the life of your engine parts. A word about inspections. Perform your 100-hour and annual inspections on time. Check that the seals and baffles are properly maintained. A word about trend monitoring. Some record keeping is mandated by law. As an aircraft owner or operator, some additional records will allow you to make important comparisons between flights, and these comparisons yield valuable information about changes in engine performance. So monitor the gauges after they're stabilized and record the readings. Compare those entries from flight to flight. Significant changes in these instrument readings are clues that engine problems may be developing. And a final word about oil. Change your oil on a regular basis. Remember that the less you fly, the more critical oil changes become. Check oil filters and screens for evidence of metal or other contamination, and don't rely on the oil's color to let you know when your oil is due for a change. Use winterization kits to prevent congealing in the oil cooler and to get the oil up to the proper temperature in cold weather. If you use an air oil separator, an acrobatic inverted system, or any additional external oil lines and plumbing, make sure the system is properly installed and does not act like a condensation unit that will return moisture to the crankcase. Remember, if you take good care of your engine, it will take good care of you.
All of us at Ameriflight, Textron Lycoming, and Shell Oil are proud of our contributions to the safety and enjoyment of general aviation. If you'd like more information about our products and their use in your aircraft, call the Shell Product Information Center or your Textron Lycoming representative. And thank you for watching.